were many. In 1306, the English attacked Scottish rebels at the Kildrummy Castle. By bribing a treacherous Scottish blacksmith named Osbarn, he set a fire that destroyed the defenders' food supply. The English took the castle, and Osbarn demanded his reward, as much gold as he could carry. The English, disgusted by his greed, melted the gold and poured it down his throat. This gruesome real-life death was echoed in the same period when the Italian Dante Alighieri began his masterpiece, The Divine Comedy, creating nightmarish punishments for sinners.
Our notion of hell is not basically scriptural. It's Dantean.
The story begins with a vision where Dante meets the dead Roman writer Virgil, who guides him into the pits of hell. There, he sees what befalls sinners. In the fourth circle of hell, Dante finds the greedy. They stumble back and forth forever, shoving huge weights that may be as heavy as the gold they tried to acquire in life. Dante calls them ill givers and ill keepers, the hoarders of money and the squanderers of wealth. These sinners are two sides of the same coin, each unable to control their money. Then Dante and Virgil descend further into hell, to the eighth circle. Here he finds the sinful priests who have committed the sin of greed by selling indulgences. Indulgences were essentially letters of forgiveness from the Pope. A sinner would buy an indulgence, which was supposed to shorten or even eliminate his punishment in the afterlife. The practice meant that greed was now an accepted part of church practice. Dante punishes the priests who profited from selling salvation by sticking them upside down in hell, their feet on fire in a reversal of the baptism ritual. Dante and Virgil move on to purgatory, a place of torment for those whose sins could be forgiven. In Catholic doctrine, purgatory is a place where sins are purged. Sinners must suffer, but eventually they will be rewarded after their punishment with the promise of heaven.
When Dante gets to purgatory, the first thing he sees is those who are able to be in purgatory because of the sin of avarice are lying face down in the dirt, repeating a psalm verse, Psalm 119, "My soul adheres to the dust." They're face down in the muck of the earth. They can't turn their eyes up the mountain of purgatory to where heaven is to see God. And so that is the ultimate comment that Dante makes on what the sin of avarice is.
Dante's Inferno helped shape attitudes towards sin and greed for the next 1,500 years. But it wasn't enough to cleanse the church of greed, especially the form of greed called simony. Simony was taking payment for priestly duties, such as confession.
In many ways, it's the ugliest form of greed. When the established religion, when the institution itself begins to deal in greed, there is no redeeming value.
The belief developed in the Middle Ages that the reason some of the faithful committed the 7 deadly sins was because they were possessed by demons. Greed was becoming so widespread that it got its own demon. The fiend's name was Mammon. Christians knew the name from the Sermon on the Mount, where Jesus warned,
"You can't serve two masters, Mammon and God. You have to pick one or the other."
During the life of Jesus, Mammon was an Aramaic word that meant riches or property, but the definition would change in the Middle Ages.
This term becomes synonymous with a demon.
In the study of demonology, Mammon would be reborn in Christian thought as a literal devil, the hell-spawned demon of greed, the enemy of charity, and the destroyer of peace. But as the Middle Ages gave way to the Renaissance, it would seem as though the sin of greed was everywhere. In 1557, Peter Bruegel, the great German painter, depicted the sin of greed in the painting Big Fish Eat Little Fish.
What you've got is the clear statement that, of course, that's how it is. Little fish are there to be eaten so bigger fish can eat them, so the system will work.
Capitalism was about to evolve, and the sin of greed would never be the same.